Welcome to another episode of On the Ball. Ball stands for Best Advice and Life Lessons, a podcast show where I focus on extracting the best advice and life lessons from world class performers and leaders from various fields by deconstructing and teasing out their routines, success habits, techniques, tricks, secrets, and best advice or life lessons that they have ever received that you can use and apply to your own life and work. I'm more interested in learning about things my guests have never said before. So today, I'm super excited to have a longtime colleague of mine at Microsoft, Lan Ye, on the show. Who is Lan? Lan is the corporate vice president of Microsoft Teams, Calling, Meetings, and Devices Group. She leads a team of product managers and engineers who are obsessed with making workplace communication simpler and more inclusive. We'll talk more about that with her as we go along. And Lan actually joined Microsoft right out of college and has worked on a wide range of consumer and enterprise products, including Windows Media, DRM, Zone, yes, that one, Windows Phone, mobile gaming, Skype, Skype for Business, Link, and other incubation projects. In recent years, she led the convergence and transformation of Microsoft's unified communication strategy from Skype for Business over to Microsoft Teams. I've been working with Lan since Skype and Skype for Business and Link days. So it's great to have you on the show, Lan. Let's play ball.
Thanks, Srini. Thank you for having me here on a Friday afternoon. Looking forward to the conversation.
Okay. I'm sure we'll jump between topics and the conversation will be a bit non-linear, but let's jump right in. I can't wait to dig in. I thought we'll start a little bit about Lan, since I think I said your name correctly, but I always wanted to make sure that I pronounce the name right. How to pronounce your name right? How should we say it? And what does it mean? And the second part of the question is, when your kids ask you what you do, how do you answer that?
So I usually introduce myself as my name is Lan, as in local area network. I'm Chinese. My first name in Chinese means very colorful, colorfulness. It's actually a pretty complicated character. It requires takes I think about 16 to 20 strokes in Chinese scripture. And none of my teachers from elementary school all the way to high school were able to correctly write my name. That's the story of my name. It became much easier in English. It's just, I have a short acronym that's easy to pronounce. My kids, they ask me about what I do. And my kids never had to ask me what I do. They actually, and on the other hand, they tell me what to do. They have been using Teams. They're teenagers and have been obviously doing online classes for the last year over Microsoft Teams. I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of the coworkers in my team. We get to play customer support for our families and friends throughout the last year. It requires no introduction. They tell us what to do. They want me to fix bugs, get new features all the time. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's for sure, Lan. Thank you for that. In fact, yeah, we all do that, right? I mean, customer support for kids these days,
Yeah.
and not just for kids, but also for schools.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes a community.
Yeah. I even had one-on-ones with my team. I remember one of the one-on-ones with my team. This engineer, he brought his daughter. And his son to the one-on-one, and he was very serious. The 6-year-old, he was very serious, and he was asking me and said, "I have one feature request for you. Can you please add games to Teams so I can play games while using Teams?" It was very, very sincere customer request. Yes, and we got that.
Absolutely, we got to take that seriously, Lan. We have to take that seriously. That's yeah.
It's so gratifying. On the other hand, yeah.
Yeah, you bet. So I was doing some research, right, when I was researching you and for this podcast, for this interview. You went to the Middlebury College and
Yeah.
graduated in computer science and
hmm
studio arts.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, the second part. How come studio arts? I know Steve Jobs often talks about the intersection of technology and liberal arts, which is different. But how did you end up doing studio arts and how did you end up in tech and software for a
Yeah.
career?
Yeah. So I think I ended up in computer and software serendipitously. I was always into art. Started very young. I draw. I do Chinese painting. Later, I did painting, watercolor, lots of different mediums. I love doing arts. I grew up in China, Shanghai, and then I came here for college. So when I applied for college, liberal arts college are just such a natural fit for me, just because my background. So I went. I was fortunate to got admitted to Middlebury College, and picking a studio art was an easy decision. At that time, um, when I came to US, I can read a lot of English, but my colloquial English, written or writing or speaking, is pretty bad. It's nearly broken. I can't really do much. So jumping into college was a pretty wild ride. When you don't speak the language. So I figured computer science, I need something to anchor myself, and computer science is relatively easy. It requires logic, and everybody has to learn this new language. It's a programming language, and I put me on an equal ground with pretty much everybody else. So I decided to do computer science more or less just as a way to balance out and give myself something that I can anchor on, that I can feel pretty confident. So I did both. And senior year, actually it was junior year, I think. I remember it was the last day of the year, and I was browsing online and just stumbled upon this female technician scholarship that Microsoft is putting out there, and as a way, I guess this was the very early days of the Microsoft diversity outreach. So I just decided to apply and forgot about it. A few months later, I got the scholarship, and that's how I got connected with Microsoft. Um, when I graduated, as in liberal arts college, we typically attract a lot of these, investment banking consulting companies from nonprofit organizations. So most of my job offers are from those industry. Microsoft was the only one technology company that I decided to apply just because of this scholarship, and I got connected with the recruiter. So I applied, and only technology company, only West Coast company I applied, and they offered me the job right on the spot. And there we are. I ended up in Microsoft. I
Wow.
think I was the first person ever got hired in Microsoft from Middlebury College. They told me in the last decade.
Wow,
Totally
that's
serendipitous.
quite a milestone. Actually, you had, yeah, you answered my other question, which is, hey, you've been with one company, right?
Yeah,
And a great company at that, Microsoft,
yeah.
from the start. And I was going to ask you, how did you end up at Microsoft? You said that. The one thing I wanted to ask you as a follow-up is, what was your very first role at Microsoft when you joined? What were you doing?
Yeah, I joined as at that time we still have this job function called software development engineer in test, SDET. Um, so it was writing code. Actually, my first 2 years of Microsoft, I wrote a lot of this was a time where VB script and then C++, COM, distributed COM. I worked on first product I worked on was called Windows Media NetShow Server, later become Windows Media Server. So it's the early days of streaming media industry. I remember my test project. We were all watching Major League Baseball on our computer with a stem-sized window. We're so excited about it. That was those days, and I was writing code, C++ code, hardcore C++ code, decom, basically building the distributed test load load. What was it? Stress test software for the Windows Media Streaming Server. Yeah. And that test tool is actually available for download. There's lots of download on the internet at that time because people were using it to stress testing the server. It was a lot of fun. I did a lot of coding in the first 2 years. And then you were asking me about my career path. Microsoft was, it was, I've been at Microsoft for 22 years now, I think. Yeah. And it's like in an eye blink, but it was such a fun ride. And Microsoft is like a Disneyland. You come in and there's a lot of different things you can do. And in my 20 years, 20 some years, I did a lot of different projects. You've touched on most of them.
You bet.
In the intro. I have, in the early days of my career, I have a sort of 2-year itch. I get bored if I work on the same project for 2 years, and then I look for something different. So, there's never shortage of, interesting things to do. It's like in an amusement park, you get so much fun. Sometimes maybe it's annoying, line gets too long, it's too crowded, too congested, but the fun never ends. And next thing I know, it's 22 years into this, and I've worked on so many products. I'm super happy about the journey.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Lan, which is what you said. And I've never heard anyone portray it like that, but that makes a lot of sense. Disneyland. Yeah, absolutely, yes. I mean, this is an amazing place. I mean, we all get to work on different projects and different products. You certainly have a broad swath of products that you've worked on. I remember I started out working on things like even live meeting, right?
Yeah, I
live
worked
meeting.
on live meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, you worked on live meeting too.
Well, actually, I can't. I did not work on live meeting, but I took over live meeting at some point.
But before proceeding OCS
in the link days. After, in the link days. Yes.
That's fun. So the one thing, so now moving along, right? I think after all that, you lead a group within Microsoft Teams that is so central to all things that we do today, like meetings, conferencing, replacing traditional phone systems, conference room devices or meeting room devices, and everything that powers the world today during the pandemic from a remote standpoint, remote working, telehealth, education, live conferences, events, large events like CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and so on.
Yeah.
So the one question that I have, Lan, is you were in the thick of all this, right? When you were thrust into the middle of all of this during the pandemic, that this is once in a lifetime experience, so to speak, to scale, to innovate, run a reliable world-class service. What were your first thoughts? How did you go about figuring it all out? I'm talking about more interested in your thought process. How did you build your personal resiliency, not the system resiliency, if you will, about tackling a huge challenge like this, especially in the face of a lot of demand, a lot of competition, intense pressure?
Yeah, it's not. I think you could probably tell from my journey at Microsoft. I sort of live and thrive in changes and chaos, I think. So it's really, many years of build up leading to this point. I've been in this industry, you and I have been in this industry long enough to know that, in this industry, change is constant. Stability is the exception. So, I've long learned how to deal with this kind of, turns and ambiguity. And this, of course, is at a different scale, but I would say my years of, at Microsoft, training on the job, get to this point, and it just felt pretty natural. It's actually a lot of fun. I always, whenever there's a great deal of pressure and ambiguity, what I usually focus on is not trying to how to sort, this ambiguity into try to organize everything, because it's rather futile. If you think about the world is full of change, full of churn. If you try to, whenever there's some churn, you're trying to get it in order, trying to put everything into its places, that you're probably just chasing the taillight of, a constant current. It's not worth it. So what I tend to focus on when there's a lot of ambiguity is just figure out my skills around how to get really, discern signal from noise, and then find pockets of clarity. It's not about making ambiguity go away, because they're always going to be there. It's more about how do you develop and sharpen your senses so that you can, identify those pockets of clarity that matters, that can help myself or the team to anchor around that. And from there, you can start growing, the execution tactics or the strategy and so on. I found that's super important. And I have a short, I'm not a list keeper, I'm not a list person, probably different from a lot of people that in my work circle. I never keep a list. That's because I always have a short list of things I focus on, and I will put all my energy and I'll move on to the next. I survey the landscape all the time and trying to figure out what's the next set of things that's important to me. And then the other thing I think it's important from a methodology perspective is, try to figure out how to solve problem in this kind of extremely constrained environment. And that's where, if you don't give yourself excuses, that's where all the creativity comes from. I love constrained problem solving. Any problem that doesn't have constraint, it's boring. So in this kind of environment, when you have a lot of customer demand, our growth is exploding, our product is being dragged into directions that we have never imagined and never designed for. And, we have very short timeline, and it's a highly dynamic marketplace. So those kind of constraints are exciting to me. I think these are the conditions where, you tune yourself, try to how to react and be more creative. I used to have, actually, probably the best way to summarize this is just, I have two questions that I always ask myself, or I sometimes challenge my team. One is a 1 cent question. The other is a $1 million question. The 1 cent question is, if I give you 1 cent, and which problem would you spend it on? And that question is really a way to help discern signal from noise, and that helps develop the sharper sense of focus, because human by nature is greedy. You just have to really put yourself in a constraint to know what matters what matters most to you. The second question I ask my team and myself sometimes is, if I give you $1 million, how would you solve the problem? The $1 million question is really a way to help remove constraints that you think you have. Sometimes when people are under pressure trying to solve problems, they sometimes subconsciously just put themselves into self-imposed constraint. And creative problem solving is really about how do you work around and overcome these constraints. Sometimes it's about getting other people to help you. It's about thinking about different ways to solve this problem. Or it's about maybe, I just need to prioritize differently. Maybe I can buy myself some more time so I can solve this. This is a good problem, but may not necessarily be the right time to solve the problem. So anyway, there's a lot of different ways. If you try to poke and challenge your own self-imposed constraints, that may give you a new way of tackling the situation. So I always do the 1 cent and $1 million question.
No, that's a great way to put it. It's an awesome nugget, Lan. I mean, I have something similar, but I think in terms of the abundance versus scarcity mindset, right? So the abundance mindset
Exactly,
is you have a lot of everything, and then how do you solve a problem? The scarcity mindset is the one that actually drives a lot of creativity, where you have everything is scarce, and you have resources that is scarce, time that is scarce.
Yeah, and I would say, Srini, even the abundance question is a creativity problem solving, right? Because sometimes people think like, I only have 1 cent, so therefore this is a problem I can't solve. But you can ask for donation. You can pull money with other people to solve. So these are just helping people to think broadly, right? We were a big company. Sometimes if I cannot solve this problem, maybe I can ask my peers to help me. Maybe I can ask my partners in the industry to help me. But it needs to start with not operating under your own self-imposed constraint.
No, right on. Thanks for that, Lan. You are one of the key women engineering leaders at Microsoft. It's important for me to mention that because starting with your childhood, right, early childhood, or say teens later on, did you have a set direction you wanted to go? Did you know where you were going, where you were going to end up? At what point did you realize or know what you wanted to do? What shaped your thinking? And the question is more in terms of, hey, was there a turning point in your career? What was that? What did you learn? How did you know, you wanted to be where you are?
Yeah,
What you learned? Yeah.
I probably have some unconventional answer here.
Sure.
I have no idea that I would end up doing this job.
That's a great
I
answer.
think even when I was in college, I have no idea that I would end up working for one of the greatest software company in the world. No idea. When I was in childhood, I think in my teenager years, if anything, I like I said, I drew a lot. I used to write novels. So, if anything, I had thought about being an author. So it's radically different from what I'm doing right now. But over the years, I kept up with my interest as well. So, if you ask me my career, like I actually don't think my career is set. I like to keep my options open. I may ended up picking up art again because I want to see if I can make a living with just doing art at some point. I would like to not to sort of confine myself to a predefined path to the extent that makes sense. I think that's kind of been my whole career or whole life. I have not really walked on any kind of beaten path or I have imagined. It's just I followed what I like to do, and somehow I end up in this place. And most of the time, I'm pretty happy. And I told my kids the same thing. Sometime or family or friends will ask and say, "Hey, what do you think your kids will do when they grow up?" I usually say, what, I don't think the job they want to do is invented yet. So what? I don't know. Be open-minded. Create a job or invent an industry. Mm-hmm. Who knows, right? Yeah. Like to keep my option open. Even at this stage, I'm mm-hmm. deep into this career, but I don't want it to just settle. I wanted to keep my options open. Try something new.
That's a great way to put it. That's a fantastic way to put it. And by the way, the one thing I did not know, even while I was doing research on you, or even I've known you for so many years, mm-hmm. that you have a background in art and you were an artist. And here's one little known thing for you. I am an artist. I used to do this.
Really? No. Yes. Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's one thing that I won countless awards and prizes, and that's what I wanted to be like a cartoonist, make animated films.
Oh, seriously? Yeah, like if I were to get to pick my second job or start over my career, I'd go work for Pixar. That would be another dream job.
Get out. I think See, you didn't know about that about me as well.
That's so cool.
Anyway, that's fascinating. Yeah, we'll share some stories later. I'll probably throw some art and share. It'll be great to look at yours. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, moving along, right? Staying on that topic, the one question that's been spotlighted past few years, Lan, is that of things like, hey, equality, gender gaps, women empowerment, equal opportunity, and so on and so forth. So on the one hand, it's great that many companies and leaders and institutions, even Microsoft, we do a lot in terms of acting, amplifying, talking. But on the other hand, it took a long time to get to this point. Did you? I'm sure you went through some challenges throughout your career. But what advice would you have for young girls who are starting out, and also for men and women alike?
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, the very first thing when you asked me that jumped to my mind is something that I always deeply believe in is just never fall victim to your own circumstances. And that's just a mentality. I think it's been so helpful for myself,
True.
because, regardless of whether you're a man, woman, age, gender, race, most people are underprivileged in some way, shape, form. Or even, you get into tech industry, you're new, there are a lot of veterans in the industry, and lack of experience is another kind of privilege, lack of privilege as well. I remember the first day I joined Microsoft, it's like a prestigious company with all these smart people. I was not sure what to do. It is a great sense of insecurity. So it's very, very common. Everybody is in some sort of underprivileged situation one way or another. But I tend to focus on what I can do to take control of the situation. I believe there is always a way you can take control of the situation and get out of the lack of underprivileged situation. And that mentality I found over the years has been super helpful. I have been misunderstood. People have treated me not fairly. People have treated me with disrespect. All of that. But you know what? I'm here for something that is bigger and greater for the cause. And much, I'm focusing on something that is a bigger purpose than just the personal justice. And then I have a lot that's in my control that I can turn things around. And that have always helped me. That I think that was number one. And the other thing that I found important is, everyone also is in a privileged situation in one way or another. Once I gained some experiences, once I gained some, trust and respect from my coworkers, I'm in a position to help other people too. I remember, we all talk about how hard it is for women to thrive in the tech industry, but I also do remember a lot of the times, I really benefited from a lot of, my coworkers around me who helped me to gain confidence, to understand and really find who I am, and find a place in this company. Sometimes it's, takes people intentionally, be out there and recognize and help other people and create those opportunities. I still remember you brought Brian McDonald.
Yep.
He's my
Yep.
former boss.
He was on the show. He was the very first one on
No.
the show. He kicked off my show.
Yeah, I know. And the guy has decades of industry experience. It's he's very much revered inside Microsoft, right? And there was one time Brian, out of nowhere, he said, you know what, you're very good at just holding people accountable but not pissing them off. I got to learn from you. And I was like, wow, and someone like Brian, so like he has so much credit in this industry, and then he's still first constantly reflecting on himself, but also he said that there's something that he find in me that he can learn from me, and that was a big deal. It makes me feel like, okay, this is the kind of place that you can be who you are and you can add value. And I want, as a leader, I want to do that for other people too. Recognize them, help them, promote them, be a good sponsor, be a good mentor. I think we help each other. That's how you really help bring the best out of each other. And that is something I think it's important. It is also integral to not falling victim to the circumstances, because you have to trust that there are people out there who wants to help you, who can help you. And you just have to go out and ask for help. And when you're in the position to help somebody, don't ever hesitate to help them, because those help will really mean a big deal to others.
Yeah, that's so well said. That's so well said, Lan, in terms of, hey, not being a victim, not allowing. I think all of these different memes do exist, but it's really up to us in terms of how we have control and we take control over that. So you said the one thing that I wanted to key off, you said, hey, there's a lot of people that helped me along the way and, guided you, coached you. Who were some of your role models or mentors? Can you share who are the 2 or 3 people that you have been most influential to you? Give me some names if you can throw as to, in the whole 9 yards we can learn from.
Yeah, I would say I never had like a sort of official, so to speak, mentor or role model. But I do pick up things from a lot of different people. I'm
Sure.
like a sponge. I always, kind of steal, borrow, copy if I can. Whenever I find someone, who I admire. I mentioned Brian, who's a great mentor for me. The way that he thinks about the product, the way, that he never takes no for a no. Choi, I think Choi, who's also a coworker of mine.
Yeah.
He was actually my first manager at Microsoft. I learned a great deal from Choi. And Choi is the one
Troy
that
was your first manager?
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah, and Choi is the
I
one
had no
that
idea.
is one of those people that actually saw something in me that I did not see. And Choi convinced me to be a PM. And like I said, I was started with it as a developer and test. Choi was the one that saw the PM in me and really convinced me to switch a career, switch the discipline, and that made a big difference in my career. And recently, examples like, during the pandemic, I actually tried out this Airbnb experience. There is this Olympic Paralympian. His name is athlete. His name is Lex Gillette. He's a blind athlete. I think he had detachment of his retina detachment sometime around 8 years old. So he lost his eyesight, and then after that, he just he's got a natural gift in sports. He became a long jumper. So I joined his talk, and he did a session. Actually, it was actually with my team. There's a bunch of people joined me as well, just trying out this experience. So he showed us how his journey, how he's doing training, and he actually, it's really cool. He showed us his training center down in San Diego through remote video. But it was inspiring. Everything he said was very much a lot similar to what I had experienced in work as well. There's one thing that he is sort of his motto or belief was, you don't need sight if you have a vision. If there is a vision, and that's basically his whole training regime, right? He can't see, but he has a vision, and once he has vision, he has a very methodical way of seeing the world out there and getting all his training regime down every day and day in, day in practice. But the other thing is he's got some people to help him. It's not like he's doing this alone. He has a trainer that was always working with him and using sound, collapsing sound, to guide him through this darkness. It was very inspiring because it had a lot of analogy to what I had go through in work, right? Because except we deal with inordinate amount of ambiguities, but what he deals with is inordinate amount of darkness. There's no more extreme ambiguity when you can't see anything. But he can chart out a path. He's a 4-time Olympic medalist. He charted out a path for himself. So if you can do that, then really there's no reason to fall victim to your circumstances, any other circumstances. So those
No, that's a great
type of
example.
stories are really inspiring.
Yeah, Lex Gillette, I think it's a great example. Not only he's a Paralympic athlete, he's also a musician. He plays the piano,
Oh, I
he
didn't know that.
sings.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, you didn't say that.
he actually released a music single,
Uh-huh.
and I think it was something like "Go for Gold" or
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Uh,
But yeah, he's a musician and a pianist. I think he
Wow.
plays the piano. It's pretty awesome. He's an inspiration.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing that.
You
Um,
gotta bring him on your show sometime, Srini.
oh yeah,
He's
maybe you
awesome.
can
You're just
introduce him to
yeah.
me. I
Yeah,
don't
I'll
know him.
connect you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, if you can
yeah,
connect me,
yeah,
that'll be awesome.
absolutely. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. Lon, switching to some lighter things, right? I just want to, the one thing that I want the audience to know, and this is part of the show also, even for me, right? Hey, I'd like to learn from people's morning rituals, right? What does it look like? What does a typical day look like? What is your first 60 to 90 minutes of your working day look like? What's your boot up sequence? What morning habits are important to you? Can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that and share
Yeah,
what is,
it's funny you asked the boot sequence. You know, the inner Tesla in me always wanted to be able to boot, from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2 seconds. That would
just
be
like
my ideal boot sequence.
there
Um,
you go. Ilya will be happy.
I know. I'm the kind of person that actually, I I don't like routines.
Mm,
In my life, I try to cut down routines or rituals as much as possible, actually, because I think I want, I aspire. When I say inner Tesla, I really mean it. Like I aspire to be, able to switch my mind on and off within very little notice. I just, be battle ready anytime. That's what I aspire to be. And I think I can mostly be successful at that. When I
mm,
get up in the morning, I brush my teeth and I wash my face and I come down and I'm in my meeting. Usually, I
mm.
don't even eat breakfast most of
That's
the
it.
time, unless I get served. But I don't need breakfast to kick off the engine. Um, and then I do workout, 4 or 5 times a week. That's probably the
Mm.
only routine that I do.
Is that different
Just
now
because
during pandemic, Lan, before and,
it
and
is different. Yeah,
pre-pandemic?
I picked up sort of more fitness on demand. Used to go to gym, but now it's more just at home, right? So
Yeah,
which I really really like because then I can completely work out for my own schedule. And I am a night person, so I usually my workout times usually are after 10 p.m. Um,
wow.
so that's usually my only routine. But in general, I try to cut down routine because when
Mm.
I don't like my mind, to be dependent on certain sequence of events. I just want to be able to control it anytime,
Well,
on and off,
yeah,
really quickly.
got it. But do you, for example, look at your phone to begin with, or do you? I mean, most people reach out to their phone, and
uh,
you look at the
yeah,
number of. I mean, these days it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
just
yeah,
email;
yeah,
it's also
yes.
chats. I want to look at my Teams and chats and
It depends.
what's happening.
Sometimes like, if I have really early morning meetings, I just woke up and I go. But if the meeting, because I work in different time zones, and sometimes morning meetings are really early, like 7 something. Um, so I don't have any. I just literally like within 5 minutes woke up and I'm ready. I'm jumping into the meeting.
Got it.
But if the meeting hour is late, then I have a bit more time. Then I graze on
Hmm.
Twitter or social media a bit.
Got it. So, um, you own this product called we call meetings,
Hmm.
among other things, right? Um, I mean, that is you own the Microsoft Teams meetings product, if you will. So, given that, hey, what does the LAN meeting look like? How do you run meetings? And I'm talking about not the tool itself, but your meeting. Is there some, effective ways, secret to running an effective meeting that others can learn from? What do you do? What do you do differently?
Yeah, I mean, it's depending on the type of meeting, right? Sometimes I have these. I think generally, there's two kinds of meetings: structured meetings, and then the other is just organic, completely unstructured meetings. And I do these. During the pandemic, I still try to keep in touch with my team. So, I have, for example, like virtual lunch hours with all the new hires usually, or the female engineers in the team. Those tend to be really, really open, and we don't have any agenda or anything. It's very casual. I enjoy this meeting tremendously. And then for my ROB, the typical rhythm of business meetings, we have started adopting a more structured approach. For example, I reject meetings if I get invite that doesn't have agenda and expected outcome. I just reject those, and that has helped sort of foster this culture. I have a template. If people request meeting of me, I have a lightweight template. People have to say, here's the attendee, here's the agenda, here's what it's the expected outcome. So that helps to just set expectation on all the parties. I found that useful. We're trying to go to more document-based meetings these days because it just, we, for example, every quarter we do retrospectives. My team does that.
Sure.
People will come in, we will read for 10 minutes, and then we'll start open up and talk about it. I think a lot of the companies have done those type of meetings, and people, we just borrow those best practices and find it's useful. We're also trying to experiment with our product, try to, for these large scale all hands meetings, how to make those more fun, more interactive. The good thing is our team builds these products. So, we've been experimenting, for example, lately, we use polls. We have these quick poll features, and that we're playing around internally where, when Lan is saying something and then someone could create a poll and say, does she make sense? Yes or no? And people would say vote, vote on the side. And then you get some instant feedback. It was fun. It's something that we're experimenting because, when you have, like a lot of people, right? When you get to something like 100, more than 100 people in a meeting, then the interactivity becomes a really, underwhelming experience. Today's products. So we're trying to push some of these ideas to see, can we make it more fun, more interesting, more engaging?
Got it. No, thank you for that, Lan. Talking about that, right? The one other question that I have is, over the years, we all make hundreds, maybe thousands of personal and professional decisions. Are there any of them that you would call, what were some of your best decisions or investments of time that you made? This is an important question because this is more in terms of your thought process leading to those decisions. Also, what would be a really bad decision that you made that you still think about, and why? It could be anything that you are able to share.
Yeah,
Particularly.
Sure. The best investment of time I have found is, I still do a lot of one-on-ones with many people across my org. Even though my team gets bigger, I do pretty religiously one-on-ones with people on a regular basis, both, people who in my team or people who are in my sort of partner and work circle. I found those important. And when I grew up in Microsoft, of course, through the ranks all the way to the org gets bigger and bigger. One challenge I've always sort of on the forefront of my mind is, as you manage a bigger and bigger org, how do you still stay in touch with the reality? I've seen a lot of leaders as they grow their org, as in both org and charter, bigger charter and bigger org, they become disconnected, and then that lead to bad decision making, bad judgment, bad decision making. So that's something that I'm very cognizant of. And as a if you in the AI world, you all know in the difference between a good AI, bad AI, a machine learning model is just the data set. You train the ML with a larger data set, the intelligence will get better. It's not too different in human world. If you don't subscribe to the right data channel, and if you don't have enough data sample, then your judgment will be impacted. Not a lot of people, not many people in the world are like Steve Jobs that has this insane intuition. But rest of us humans, we need a lot of data to develop our judgment. And as the organization leaders, as you rise up through the food chain to bigger and bigger org, there's a risk of you start subscribing information per the hierarchy of the organization, which could have biases and inefficiencies because of the hierarchies of the organization, especially in such a matrixed structure like in Microsoft. So, stay in touch with people in my, ICs, not necessarily just managers in my org. Many levels skip is important to me because that's sort of my way of working around the organization hierarchy so that I can subscribe to information in a, non-conformant way. This way, it'll help me develop a better sense of what is going on really and the ground truth. And then, being able to marry that with sort of the broader, sort of higher level view of the org. That has been, I would say, the single best decision that investment of time that I've made. I've learned so much just through these one-on-ones, the pulse of the organization, the pulse of the structure. When you say bad decision, I really think that there's no bad decision. That's just my sort of personal belief. The real bad decision, the real bad thing is, how you deal with the consequences of a decision.
Yeah.
I think the real bad decision is not making decision. So I it's sort of just like the name of your podcast. I believe in pass the ball. When you get something in your hand, you got to keep the ball moving. But the way to keep the ball moving is to just make a decision. And that sometimes we don't have perfect information to make a decision. But the important thing is you just got to learn. You make some stupid mistakes. You learn from it. Hopefully that will inform you to make smarter decisions next time. It doesn't matter if I made some bad decisions that looked bad at the moment. It'll turn out to be good learning for me anyways. So, I don't really remember bad decision. I think, if anything, I sometimes still think about, when 2 years ago, when we were still going through this journey, as you and I, been through this together, the Skype for Business and Teams convergence journey. We're catching up on a lot of the Skype for Business features and Teams. And in the meantime, we're basically revamping the Teams architecture under the hood. So, I constantly have to make a decision on whenever something new comes up, some new innovation, new features, new ideas come up. Should we invest in the current code base that's going away, or should we wait for another 3 to 6 months until we have this shiny brand new code base that's foundation for future? So I make those decisions all the time. Sometimes I feel, boy, I wish I just, did not optimize for efficiency. I wish I just have, double invested anyway so that we can actually make more progress in the market. I think that came very clear when COVID hit. We were a little bit unprepared because we were still taking our time to basically on this re-architecture project. And, I wish we had moved faster, but that will require us to basically not optimize for efficiency. Right.
No, right on. I think that's so awesome, Lan, which is I think like there is a saying, right, which is, hey, there are no good or bad decisions. there is basically slow or fast decisions, or basically decisions and indecisiveness.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, hey, make a quick decision. There is no right or wrong. I think if it is something which is incorrect, you go
Yeah. Deal with the
fix it later.
consequences.
Yeah, you get better. You get better
Yep.
at making those decision points. So great. Lon, just a few other things before we'll hit the time limit here. Although I'd love to keep going, but we got to stop. What is the most common? Is there a common misconception about you? I mean, everybody has one. What is the
Yeah.
most common misconception about you
Yeah.
that you
That
always
people,
try to dispel, if you will, or it
people,
bugs you?
and it doesn't bug me. I mean, I don't be bugged at all by misconceptions, but I think people will always think that I'm buttoned up, organized. Um, and when I remember when I told my coworkers and said, "Well, I'm late for my credit card bill," and people were surprised and shocked. And what I get my electricity cut off because we forgot
Really? I
the auto payment expired or something. I have a lot of sloppiness in life and work. And people somehow think, I guess because the way that I work, people think that I got everything buttoned up, but no.
That's a very good one. That's an interesting one. And yeah, I've never heard of that. In terms of
You would not expect
you
I would be the
you
kind of
always
person who will have my electricity cut off, right?
you always come across as someone who's got all the ducks in a row, and
I know, right?
I- yeah,
That's well, I
yeah,
can tell
I
you
got it.
more.
And on the same count, right? What would you say if there is one thing we all have strengths and we're not so good at some things, right? What would you say is your superpower? And at the same token, um, is there a bad habit that you're working on right now? We
Yeah,
always constantly keep working at things.
yeah, I can start with the bad habit. I think I'm just really, and I'm known for this. I'm really bad at keeping time. And the pandemic made it worse because just like trying to be on time for meetings and people are waiting for me. I feel so bad. I wasted people's time because I can't keep track
Mhm.
of time. That's something that I think it's sort of the flip side of the coin because I enjoy so much in chaos and um, and I like to have very sharp when I focus on something. I lost track of time, um, but I need to develop structure, how to manage my time. That's definitely something that
Mm. You need to work
I've
on.
been working on. I have people help me to keep track of time, but it's not really changing the habit. So I need to change the habit. Um, Superpower. Um, I think it's just kind of rooted in my background, right? I have an art background. I have a computer science background. So just I have this ability
Mm.
to look at problems from both logical and illogical emotional perspective. Both sides, and that influenced how I think about product, how I build product, how I manage team, how I deal with crisis. I think that's been really helpful, just understanding the human side and the technology side of the problem.
Got it. Got it. Now, thanks for sharing that. I know sometimes, this show is you put yourself out there. I think we share a lot of things, but I think it benefits other people. So thank you for sharing that. One final question before we wrap up, Lan. What would you say is the best advice that you ever got, and what's the biggest lesson that you learned that you would like to share?
The best advice I ever got and lessons I've learned, it's there is always a way. That's always my answer to anything.
Mm,
My daughter actually, my birthday, one of my birthday, she drew a picture with a pig on it, which is my zodiac sign. But and then there's an engraving on it that says there is always a way. So it's deeply engraved in my family as well. My kids knows this about me. I always say there's always a way. And there is always a way.
Awesome. There is always a way.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Thank you. Hey, Lan, I enjoyed having you on the show. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts? If not, thank you. Have a great
weekend. Thank you. And no, I think I said a lot. And thank you for giving me this forum. It was really fun to talk about all these questions. It made me think a bit about the journey that I have been through. It's last year's been so crazy, but really, it's the 20-some years that I've been at Microsoft leading to this moment. It made it, actually, it wasn't that bad. It was easy, but but it's really the journey that got me there, and all the people that helped me along the way. So.
Indeed, it's a great company. Indeed, absolutely. We are, even though we all spend so much time working for Microsoft, I think it always reminds you that what a great place it is. But thank you for sharing and giving back. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.